Lonesome Lands podcast. This is the weekly Lonesome Report, June 10, 2025. And if we're going to get right into it. If you want to support what we're doing, go to lonesomelands.com, click subscribe, or click on the store and buy something. Or email Jim at lonesomelands.com for advertising opportunities. We'll get right into it. American Angus Association. If you listened last week, we'll just kind of give you an update on what's going on there. I guess if you didn't listen last week, American Angus Association took $4.85 million from the Bezos Earth Fund to study the methane, the impact of methane on the climate, and how to reduce it in their cattle. How to create a lower methane producing line of genetics for their cattle. And their members were all pissed off, and they created a petition because they were never notified about this. They were never asked about this. And the real role of a breed association, which is what the Angus Association is to kind of register cattle and keep track of actual genetics. And it's not to send millions of dollars to an Australian university and team up with people who think cattle are destroying the climate. So their members were mad. They made a petition. You know what the last final number was? Like 3,600 people?
38. It looks like it was 3,800 or 3,624.
Yeah. Got signed on to this petition saying that they wanted the Angus Association to give that money back. My social media has pretty much been Jeff Bezos, artificial intelligence, AI pictures of him as a cow and
Yeah.
all the jokes pretty much nonstop for a week. But the petition ended, and so here we are. I guess that's what we
Yesterday.
covered last week.
Yeah.
And this week, Angus Association came out with a big long letter. To summarize it, it said, "We heard your complaints. Um, we're still taking the money. Also, you should trust us." P.S. Trust us. That's what it said. They're the group that signed on to this deal, never asked their members about it, kind of tried to slide it in without their members really knowing exactly what it was. And then in the end, when it all came out, what exactly it was, now they want their members to trust them going forward, that this is all about efficiency and nothing about methane. When
Yeah. Nothing
everything that
about data sharing or anything like that.
yeah,
So Brian Palmer, who was the creator of the petition, and they did a really good job. Him and his associates in the American Angus Association, or members, or probably former members, who know. It ended yesterday, 3,624. This is Brian Palmer's quote from yesterday. Regrettably, before the petition closed, we learned that the AAA, American Angus Association board, voted unanimously to retain the funds. We strongly oppose this decision. The core of their reasoning centered on efficiency, but many of us believe this is a disingenuous justification. Researching methane emissions under the guise of efficiency while accepting funding from a globalist organization with a stated mission to reduce animal agriculture is problematic. The narrative surrounding methane's impact on global warming or climate change is, in my view, a hoax. And by accepting this money, the American Angus Association is validating that narrative. Further, what happens with this data and how it is to be used by this dangerous partnership to push their methane agenda in the future is something that we cannot gamble with. So what I learned from that quote is that people have really woken up to the alternative motive of these ENGOs and their partnerships with those who decided they needed to sit at the table with their enemies. Very
I
good,
know.
Brian Palmer. Very good.
Yes, the whole thing was well done. Pushed, like I said, pushed really hard on social media. It kind of opened a ton of people's eyes, so it was great to see. And the result was kind of what was expected. Like, they're
Yeah.
taking the money. They don't, I mean, that's what they showed from the get-go. They don't care about their members. So what's a petition, you know, what's a petition change anything? And so who knows what'll happen going forward, but one of the thing that kept, they're just pushing this efficiency, efficiency, efficiency. They're which is a word that cattle guys like, So they're saying, well, this study of this methane is actually a study about how to make your cattle more efficient. Um, and so what that always brings me back to is the Food Ag Climate Alliance.
Yeah.
And this ties into a number of different things because this is a alliance that one of the founding members was Farm Bureau. Another member is National Cattlemen's Beef Association. They sign on to these groups, which we'll get into here in a minute. And then, they take all of their members' names and they use it to lobby for things. And when you hear about efficiency, I want to read to you what the Food Ag Climate Alliance was lobbying for in the most recent farm bill. This is from last year, so it was during the Biden administration, but this is from their farm bill, policy. This is what they wanted. And they wanted to enable the use of technologies such as gene editing to improve animal genetics. Improving animal genetics to produce more meat or milk could allow for a reduction in the total number of animals in production, thus reducing the aggregate environmental impact. Improvements of animal genetics will also be a critical aspect to helping livestock producers around the world adapt to climate change or to adapt to a changing climate. And so when you hear efficiency, when cattle producers hear efficiency, they think this is a good, profitability. Like this is how we make money is to have a more efficient business overall. Um, when the Bezos Earth Fund and the Global Climate Hub and everyone that the Angus Association has partnered with hears efficiency, they hear what I just read to you, a reduction in the total number of animals in production. That is the goal of the efficiency for the people that these people partner with, including, I mean, this is a Farm Bureau signed off document. This is a National Cattlemen's Beef Association document. And I'll put a link to it in the description here. This is page, I think, 23 of it, where it goes into livestock and dairy. It's on page 24. Another part of it is to ensure that the NRCS, National Resource Conservation Services, which is a part of USDA government fund, adequately incorporates feed nutrition management as a tool to reduce emissions. It says currently there is no conservation planning assistance for livestock producers who are working to reduce emissions from their animals. So they want to, this Food Ag Climate Alliance, which I went through the members, but they want to have the taxpayers pay for food that would reduce emissions from their animal. I mean, it just goes, it really gets into how to reduce methane. Constant reduction of methane. And if you're not familiar with, my take or our take here on this, cattle are part of the environment.
The ruminant is part of our ecosystem, and to deny that is nothing more than a lie. And so, this is what getting at the sitting at the table gets you. But you touch on all these partnerships, and you touch on wording and stuff, but ultimately we don't hear much about it under sustainable development. It is their mantra is continuous improvement. And when you talk about the word efficiency, which is popular in agricultural circles, we're probably more efficient than we've ever been in the history of production agriculture. But when they talk about efficiency in these partnerships, what they're talking about is continuous improvement, which means you're never going to be good enough for their standards, and they will always continue to set the bar higher and higher. And some of these, you're talking about the Food Ag Alliance, Farm Bureau, Environmental Defense Fund. That's crazy.
Those
The
are the
Nature
two of
Conservancy,
them founding members. Yeah, Nature
Ducks
Conservancy.
Unlimited, the sugar people, the cotton people, Farm Credit is part of this. I mean, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the corn growers, the National Milk Growers, state affiliates like the Colorado Farm Bureau. All of these people are part of this alliance that have bought into the lie and are sitting at the table with very communistic organizations.
Yep. And so this goes into kind of what we've been talking about a lot is these organizations, like how many Farm Bureau members know that they want to that they're lobbying, their name and their membership is being used to lobby for gene editing to reduce the number of animals in production. Like that's what we're telling you right now. And it just goes into the Angus Association. Their goal was to do whatever they want and use their members to lobby for these different things, including this any methane reducing BS that they're dealing with. Um, and they lobby for this efficiency, and it's like goes back to what I said. Their efficiency to the climate people that you're partnering with means reducing the number of animals. Their goal
Correct.
is to reduce the number of animals. And so this goes into something we've talked a lot about is this Common Ground Summit, which our friend Jack Payne is on the warpath about. I think, and to a lot of people, they're scratching their head about why. Why couldn't you just, this is all about unity, and these topics are what we all support these kind of things and all of this stuff, but. I guess if you're not familiar with the Common Ground Summit, they invited 40 of what they called what do they call
I call them the elites,
them? Right. Yeah, I called it.
industry elites.
Yeah, they called it like the most influential people in the cattle industry. When I first heard about that, I don't know if I ever said that on here, but I thought it was like the Cattlemen's Economic Forum, right? Which is like the World Economic Forum
Oof.
where they just invite the world elites in and they fly in on their private jets and they all meet together and decide what the world is going to do is the World Economic Forum, but this is the cattlemen's one where they all get together and they decide what the cattle industry should be doing and should be talking about. And one of the things that's come up this week is that they're not really sure how many of the bullet points. They came out with these five objectives, but in some places it's six objectives. And so the one that they have left out, a number of places, Livestock Marketing Association, this is kind of pushed by them. They have
Hold
left it
on.
out. Go ahead.
Hold on. Let's read those five bullet points that the
Yeah, let's
Common
just get
Ground
into it.
so the Common Ground Summit relayed five pretty good bullet points, right?
Do you have
So
the
they are
sixth one ready?
ag friendly tax policy. We like that, right? Extending and enhancing key provisions like transfer tax exemptions, stepped up basis, uh, and accelerated depreciation to support ag families. That's great. We like that. Risk management tools. Improve programs like the livestock risk protection or the LRP to better serve producers. I am not for that. I don't think it's the taxpayers' job to cover our risk. Access to labor. That's huge. That's a huge one. Streamline and expand H2 programs to address labor shortages. We all know in agriculture, we have a shortage of labor, or at least of those willing participants in labor. We probably have them there. Nobody wants to do anything. Flexibility for livestock haulers. This is a huge one for people like me. Exempt livestock haulers from restrictive hours of service, HOS rules, and the electronic logging device mandate. Now, isn't that ironic? The electronic logging device mandate for livestock haulers, and yet we're going to implement the EID for livestock owners. Irony. Support for young and emerging producers. This is what I've been talking about for a long time on all
We push it
podcasts. We need to
hard. Yeah, every week we're pushing for that.
we need to figure out a way to get these younger people back in. So those are the five that the Common Ground Summit come up with. Overall, they're pretty good, really good actually. And so you would think, yeah, that's really something to get on board with. I think we need to consider that. Let's sign on. But then, like you say, I'll let you take it from here. There's all of these hidden objectives, and some places you find it, and some places you don't.
Do you have it? Do you have the sixth one in there? Do you have that in front of you? Or do I
I
need to
do.
look that up?
No, I've got it. So the sixth one is, of course, innovation and sustainability. champion technologies and programs that enhance livestock production efficiency. Here we are again, and sustainability. Continuous improvement. This is sustainable development at its very core. So the question has come up, is the Common Ground Summit attendees and those who have agreed on these 5 bullet points, which are good for agriculture, are the official bullet points the 5, or are the official bullet points the 6? That you don't find the 6th one everywhere. The one where I found it was in the Beef Magazine. Beef Magazine included this 6th one of efficiency and sustainability. Now, at the
I think
same time,
Drovers also
yeah,
included it.
Drovers did
You'll
as
find it
well.
different places, but you won't find it on the Common Ground
That's right. So
website.
is that a mistake, or is that something that's being hidden? And I think that's something we need to find out where they truly stand. It just so happens that this week, Beef Magazine is hosting a Young Producer Sustainability Summit. And I think it all just kind of goes together. Maybe not, but I feel like it is. Why did Beef Magazine include that 6th bullet point of efficiency and sustainability
And what
all
does
at the
that
same?
mean? Going back to what we just talked about, is
Yeah,
that gene editing to
it's gene
reduce a
editing.
number of animals in production? Because that's what
Absolutely, it
Farm
is.
Bureau and NCBA is lobbying for.
Correct. That's correct. And what did we just talk about with the American Angus Association? I
Right.
mean, it was all about efficiency. It's and so ultimately, I think, it's all about picking winners and losers. And I think the Common Ground Summit in this situation, those participants are going to have to address the 5 bullet points versus the 6th bullet point. And is there something hidden in there? I think it's got to be addressed, and addressed soon, because what we've seen with the American Angus Association issue this week, people are going to want to know. They're going
Yeah,
to want
and
to know the
they
truth.
have to know. I mean, and
Yep.
they've went out and got all these people to sign on to this deal because they
Hmm.
see all of those good things that they're pushing for. But I have a strong feeling that some of the people on that list, probably aren't for gene editing to reduce the number of animals in production. Um, or, the same with this Bezos fund. Like that last bullet point goes straight into that deal.
It
Um,
does.
and to me, it's like this whole, like that Common Ground Summit, I was thinking about it. It's what it was when they went out there, they were told they aren't going to talk about, what did they call it? Things that ain't nobody, that people disagree on. Like there's certain topics that they just weren't going to talk about, which was
MCOOL.
mandatory country of origin
Hmm.
labeling, I believe, checkoff reform, and mandatory electronic identification.
So
And
basically, it's a club for everybody that agrees on everything to get together and high five each other. Because
well,
where is the critical debate in the industry issues that we don't agree on, and how do we debate to either accept those or not accept them? I mean, if you're agreeing on everything, Jim, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
yeah, and I mean, all that stuff you listed also seems like we all talk about Farm Bureau is the biggest, most powerful lobbyist in DC. Those were all Farm Bureau. I mean, what's to keep Farm Bureau from? Why do we need a new lobbyist, common ground lobbyist outfit to come in and push those things? And to me, this pushback against mandatory ID is gaining steam and is still very strong. Mandatory country of origin labeling is also gaining a lot of steam, and checkoff
Yeah.
reform is obviously on the forefront of the thoughts of the people cashing those checks. They're very concerned about it. So they don't want those things talked about because those are lightning rod issues. But then they'll bring in and put this bullet point on there about sustainability, the thing that we're going on here once a week, and that and the Angus Association just blew up because
Yeah.
of. Like that is an obvious lightning rod issue. And if you
Well,
want
and I
everybody to
think,
agree on everything, you can't be saying okay. And what it goes back to, we know what the corporate feed yards, the corporate beef packers, all the big wigs want to do. And they don't want mandatory country of origin labeling. They want mandated EID tags, and they don't want checkoff reform. And so those things we weren't going to talk about. But they also want all of this sustainability BS. And
Yeah.
that's something that they would talk about. So it just gives you a big clue of what this common ground thing is.
Well, and
Um,
I mean, listen, maybe the common ground is standing alone. I don't know. You'll how do we prove that? But the question here is Beef Magazine, which is highly controlled, uh, agenda driven by the largest trade organization in the United States and others et al. They're the ones that put this sixth bullet point on. So is that Common Ground Summit
well, you think they would
a
just
part?
dream that up and put that on there without
Well, actually, I do think that they are that nefarious.
Beef Magazine with?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I
Absolutely.
don't.
I
I
think,
think
but the question I'm posing to you is who put that sixth bullet point on there? Was it Beef Magazine? Was it NCBA? Was it Farm Bureau? Does the Common Ground people know that it's on there? I mean, how do we have on the Common Ground website five, which it's their website, and then Beef Magazine comes out with six bullet points? Somebody either added it or they're not telling
well,
everybody
Common Ground
everything.
has it. I mean, there was no correction. Common Ground's reposting the article that it was listed in and the interview and all that
If that's
stuff.
the
And I think
case,
I've
they're
heard Common Ground interview people talk about sustainability and all this kind of
well, of
stuff.
course you have. They're NCBA people. They've all bought into the lie, but
Well, I wouldn't say they all. I mean, I could
a
see
lot of
somebody
them have bought
hearing,
into the lie.
but I
Okay,
could see someone hearing, okay, we want to create this coalition and work for those things that you just listed, right?
right,
The like they
which is
came out
good.
this week with Cindy Hyde Smith. Um, what do they call that? When
The
they introduced, she introduced a
yeah,
bill of what was it, Heritage
the
in
Heritage
Ranching or
Act,
Farming Act,
Heritage
which
Act.
is sounds like a great bill. Everything about it sounds great, and they say it comes, the Common Ground people are kind of taking credit for it, like this is what we're doing and this is what we've put in, and it's like, okay, great, let's get behind this act, but we don't all have to sign on to a group, which the Angus Association members are just realizing now. You don't be signing on to a group where you don't know what they're actually lobbying for. If you want to lobby for the Heritage Act, okay, let's go lobby for it.
Well,
Put all
that
your
brings us back to omnibus bills. I mean, that's what
yeah,
me and you have been talking about omnibus bills. Let's do it one at a time and do it right so the
but I'm
American
not
people can know.
right. But I'm not putting my name on something where it's just this overall thing of this is where we want the cattle industry to go. And oh, by the way, we aren't going to talk about the things that you think are the most important.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Agree.
and it goes into going back to the Angus Association. Somebody sent me a text when people look at this stuff and they're constantly, they think about it and they go, they put together two and two, and it says Angus Association has set up a can't lose for the bigs within the Angus Association. Quit and the small guys no longer have registered animals. And then it just leaves the big guys to have their big
Yeah.
bull sales, and they're the only ones with the registered bulls. And if you want to have Angus registered Angus genetics, but that kind of goes to the common ground stuff in this LRP deal. Do you want to get into this LRP deal, Chad? You don't?
No.
You said,
Sometime.
yeah,
Sometime other than today.
yeah. But another one of the elephants in the room, I felt like when you look at the people who put this thing together, and I don't know them, I've never met the people, most of the people at LMA. I feel like this is an LMA deal, which the main thing we've talked about them is they pay their
According to the
CEO.
website, it is LMA.
Yeah. And the main thing we talk about LMA is they pay their CEO 20% of their total revenue, or almost $1.8 million. CEO. And so, maybe they're trying to save a little face on this deal, but the elephant in the room, I feel like for LMA that I don't ever hear talked about is the videos versus the sale barn. When you and so right now there's these big video companies that are selling a ton of cattle that don't go through any sale barn, and LMA seems to be with them and doing what they want to do. but if you look towards the future, and as everything gets more and more concentrated, all of the agriculture sectors get more and more concentrated, I feel like the biggest competition for your local sale barn are these video places. And I don't understand how LMA can promote or work for both almost. I mean, I guess I can, I don't know. I don't like the big videos. I guess I'll just say that because it's taking money out of the pockets of your community.
There is no doubt about that. That
And
is,
everything we talk about on here is, we want to continue to have rural communities
that's
and putting
right.
your money back into your neighborhood and your local sale barn and and all of that kind of stuff.
Well,
And
what
the people that are pushing these big videos are also pushing EID. They're also pushing, they're just the big corporate people. They want everything to be more and more concentrated, and they see things going forward. They're quoted as seeing things as a vertical, becoming more and more vertically integrated.
Well, it's all about the dollar, right? Okay, so you have these video sales that have come online in the last 20, 25 years that have provided a service that was based on technology and what we go back to what you were talking about, efficiency. So if I'm a guy that's gonna has 1,000 calves to sell, it's a whole lot easier to sell those on the video in my home and let the at the end of the day say FOB, freight on buyer, right? Right. So the guy who buys it has to pay the freight. Well, if you're freighting, 1,000 calves to the sale barn, that's a big deal. So that all has a place in this, and so all of those efficiency standards, all of this technology has really made it easier for us to market our cattle in the instantaneous, right? Because back in the old days, if you had calves you were selling in Montana, and the same exact calf in Florida was selling on the same day, there could have been a $20 to $30, 100 difference in them. But technology has evened that up, right? It's evened it up in timing, and so that has been more efficient and a lot better for ranchers. The problem is that it has gotten so big that it's just like, the beef packers or whatever you want to talk about centralization. So now they're getting so big that they have the power. And I think that's what you're starting to see in the West, or with all of these great big video sales, right? And so we have to be mindful that, number one, we make a choice. Are we going to sell local? Are we going to sell in the local barn, where they're, maybe you won't get the same prices you get on the sale barn, because or in the video sales, because it's a volume issue. Maybe we have to make a different choice. And then we have to be very mindful that these people are going to get so big that there's no difference in what we're already fighting
Yeah, I
to the beef
mean,
packers, right? I mean, that's a huge deal
and your
that
local
we have
sale
to
barn
consider.
won't be, I mean, that's the thing. They're taking millions and millions of cattle out of your local sale barns, which means they're taking millions of dollars out of your local economy. And efficiency has been pushed so hard for the last few years as a top priority.
Yeah.
And you got to look at where it's got us.
Yep.
We
You
don't
do.
have
Less producers, less
small,
cattle.
we
Yep.
don't have rural communities. I mean, that's what
Nope.
it's got us. And so I get it. I get it how efficiency is a priority, but I think people should also start looking as far as a priority as where your money, what
Well,
you're
that's the
doing to your
conscious
local
choice I'm talking
economy and
about,
where you want
right?
rural America to end up.
Absolutely. That's the choice that is the conscious choice that we have to make. Are we going to support, I don't know about in your area, but in rural central United States, our schools are dying. Our communities are dying. We have kids that want to play. Let's just say we're now two different schools are now coming together in one sports team. We have so
Two.
few
In my,
kids.
I mean, we're in softball season now, which is not the most popular deal, but I mean, there's 5, 6 different
Wow.
schools.
Wow.
going together. It
You
was
know,
two
and
when I was in high school. They were started
yeah.
going together.
I mean, in my little high school, if you want to play softball or cross country, you have to go to a different town and run for that school. The football teams have consolidated, the basketball teams have consolidated. The schools maybe have or haven't, some have, some haven't. And then they're down to what, 8-man football in a lot of places. We no longer have the kids, and this is part of the hollowing out of our rural community. So my point is we have to make that conscious choice of what we're going to do and how we're going to uplift those communities. And this is all a part of it. Now, I don't know how I've not sold cattle on the video. Well, one time I did, but I don't know how that works in terms of. I think they're members of the LMA, but I don't know if they pay the same as a local sale barn does
I don't
to
believe
the
so.
to
I
the
don't
LMA.
because LMA is a big insurance outfit, and if they're selling straight off your place, you don't have to have.
Well, and
I
I'm
mean, you
glad you
probably
said they're a big insurance outfit because that's exactly what they ought to be doing. They shouldn't be setting policy in the beef and cattle industry. They should be selling insurance,
yeah. The other
bonding.
thing, it seems so obvious to me. Like if we want to promote local sale barn, promote local sale barn, but you have like sale barn guys that promote these big videos. That
Well,
seems
some of these
weird
sale
to me
barn
too.
guys own videos. They own
Yeah, I know, but
they've
some of
had
them
to
don't.
they've had to increase their technology to compete, right? It's not I doubt that it's what they want to do, but to compete on this level, they've had to implement their own little video livestock market.
Well, and to be clear, we're not criticizing the DV auctions or the Cattle USA type stuff, right? We're not because those are videos coming from to your local sale barn. Those are adding buyers to your local sale barn.
Correct.
What the big
Correct.
videos are like Western and Northern Superior. Those are gigantic videos where they sell hundreds of thousands of cattle on video from different ranches.
That is correct, and I don't know if they even saw how the future would roll out.
Yeah.
Especially in this day and time of supposed very low numbers, lowest numbers in the history of the cattle industry. I don't know that they saw that, but it is just like every other business, Jim. We have to be very careful. There's an even playing field that has to exist, and we cannot allow these people to monopolize a certain industry and take total control. And there's some sort of partnership that is happening that it feels like all of a sudden this year, this LMA and all these partnerships are like increasing in maybe productive control, a productive control mechanism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it goes back to this vertical integration. Like,
They're all on the same team, it feels like.
yeah. And they've just kind of resigned themselves to it. Like, right? There's been this
Got
fight
to sit at that
against
table.
Yeah, there's been this fight against like becoming the hog industry, becoming the chicken industry, that kind of stuff. But now there's these people who want to be leaders in this industry, and they are for that vertical type integration.
Well, and
And
I'm
to
just
continue concentrating.
the reason that is happening, Jim, and this is going to tick a lot of people off, and I'm
All
sorry,
right.
but the reason that is happening is because with the war on beef, which is the war on the charters of freedom, we have this infiltration from the top down that has gotten into our colleges and universities, and we're seeing it this week with Beef Magazine and their sustainability summit for youth. So what we've done is brainwash these youth into these colleges and universities and say, here's the system you have to serve instead of independent production. That's why we have split. There's so few independent producers on the land anymore. And all of agriculture is made up of corporate agriculture, global trade, initiatives, all of these things that are against independent production. But we've taught our college age kids that to be involved in the agriculture industry, you have to go work for these corporate oligarchs. And that's just not the case. If we had a way to get these kids back on the ranch, truly, I mean, does the Common Ground Summit really, really, truly believe that we want to, support young and emerging producers, those who want to get back on the land or first time producers? Do they truly believe that? Because if they did, these partnerships go against that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
These partnerships are against independent production. They want it all verticalized. And so when you have the Common Ground Summit talking about support for young and emerging producers, you know what we ought to do? We ought to take every dadgum taxpayer dime away from the ENGOs and the trade organizations, every single one of them, and we ought to put it in a pot to help these young kids get back on the land and feed their families and communities. That's what we ought to be doing. But no, we're partnering up with the wrong people who have actually said they want to lower the number of cattle available to consumers, which controls our food security. This is the problem we have. They're speaking out of both sides of their mouths. And to me, we are on a precipice of something very dangerous here. If these young people just realized the position that they've been put in, but I think there's a problem there too, because they've been raised, they're the second generation to be raised through the corporate system, right? My generation was really the first to have to step out there. If we want a job in agriculture, we had to go to college and we had to get in the corporate system. And so now our kids have learned the same thing. We have to, Mindy Patterson says it all the time. We have to get back to the basics. We have to get back to the foundation. And if we are going to truly support young and emerging producers in America, then we got to stop supporting these globalists who say cattle are killing the planet. Bezos Earth Fund, World Wildlife Fund, the Nature Conservancy, USDA APHIS says on their website they want to control that food product from birth to plate. That's vertical integration. That's controlled production. That's controlled consumption. If we're really wanting to get kids back to the ranch and back into production agriculture and make their community and their country safe, we'll do just the opposite of what they're asking us to do.
Right on.
Sorry.
Find that kind of passion anywhere else.
Sorry.
And no, I love it. But that goes to all of these associations. What creates this passion that I know Shad has, he looks at all of these associations and they're all doing the same thing, and it's against their members' wishes, but it's pushing the corporate agenda.
It absolutely is. I mean, here on the Common Ground Summit right here, it says flexibility for livestock haulers. We need to exempt livestock haulers from restrictive hours of service rules and the electronic logging device mandate. But yet we're going to push the EID mandate on the physical cattle themselves. What kind of sense does that make? It doesn't make any sense, because all the electronic logging device mandate does is track their data. It collects their data and track when they've been driving and when they haven't been. If they're on, they're off, make sure they got enough rest hours and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's all about safety, right?
Huh?
Their traceability for our
Exactly.
safety.
Exactly.
I mean, it goes into the same
traceability
thing.
for our safety, and yet we're going to push it in the beef industry. These things are so fork-tongued. My dad used to tell me about it before he died. He'd say these people are so fork-tongued they don't even know if they're coming or going. They don't know if they're coming or going. And truly, we are getting the industries, both the beef and cattle industries, so enmeshed in all this confusion that nobody knows. It's you and I have both discussed. It's hard to keep up with all this stuff. It's hard to keep up with who's partnering with who. I mean, I look at this Food and Agriculture Climate Alliance deal, and I'm sick about this, because here we have American Farm Bureau. On the other side, Environmental Defense Fund. Nobody more dangerous to agriculture than them. National Council of Farmer Cooperatives, National Farmers Union, the Nature Conservancy. I mean, who has taken more production off the land than the Nature Conservancy? The only one that comes close is the World Wildlife Fund. American Sugar Alliance. The Board of Agriculture Assembly. What in the hell is that stuff? American Seed Trade Association. Ducks Unlimited. What does Ducks Unlimited have to do with agriculture? Go hunt your ducks.
They
and
want
do your
to.
own
They
thing.
want to take. They want to turn everything into pond. They want a pond on everybody's farm, so there's more and more ducks.
No, that's not at all what they want. Here's one: farm credit. We're talking about getting kids back on the land, trying to borrow some money to get them back on the land through farm credit services, and their alliance with this with this organization that wants to reduce production. The Fresh Produce Association. Right now, the blueberry guys in Florida are having immortal hell. They cannot compete because we're importing so much Mexican blueberries. We have the National Milk Producers Association. My wife is a CPA. When I first married Thea 14 years ago, or 12 years ago. She had 100 and over 141 dairy clients. Now there's less than 30 in her community. The National Cotton Council, the guy that lives right behind me, is head of the National Cotton Council, and they've bought into the World Wildlife Fund. Why would the World Wildlife Fund need to be a part of the National Cotton Council? You tell me. I don't know. Does this not make sense to anybody but me? All this infiltration. This is all about centralization and production control, controlling what we produce. It's all about national security. And I appreciate people like Brian Palmer coming out and talking about these things, because these are those associations, or you know, Bezos Earth Fund and those ENGOs and those NGOs, they're no longer hiding their agenda. They used to hide this agenda. That's why they infiltrated into the NCBA, 15, 17 years ago, when they had 15 people vote to promote sustainable development. And then they asked, well, what is that? What did we just vote on? That's how they do it. But no longer, they don't have to hide any longer, because we've all signed on. And the World Wildlife Fund is on record as saying cattle are killing the climate. Agriculture is the most pressing issue on earth. These are the people we're dealing with. And to buy into this lie that has become populist is very dangerous. And I don't see Americanism in it anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel
Right
today.
on, brother.
I need to get the hell out of here, bro.
No, you nailed it. Nailed it. But that goes into like these organizations, their members don't know what they're doing. And, our job is to inform them. And you just inform the hell out of people, I think, on that deal.
I hope I
Um,
did.
I guess next topic. Are you done?
I'm done, sir.
That was awesome. Next topic is the screwworm. Is
Let's
still
talk about the screwworm.
So this week there was a viral kind of video. I guess I don't know how viral it was. I didn't see how many views it was, but it got sent to me by, what was the outfit? It was a Mexican feed yard.
Yeah.
A Mexican feed yard, and they had made a video in Chihuahua, Mexico, where they don't have any flies.
Yeah, he said it. He
That's how
said
they
it
start
on
out.
there. There were no flies.
As you can see, we don't have any flies here. And then he said that his grandpa didn't lose any cows to screwworm. His grandpa's always been fighting screwworm. They never lost any cows. And it's not time to draw lines and to get separate. It's time to shake hands and work together to fight the hunger of the world. And he got a ton of likes and all kinds of support. And yes, let's all hold hands and work together, because Mexico doesn't have any flies and screwworms actually don't really hurt anybody. And it's let's all and kids are starving, so we got to open up the Mexican border for Mexican cattle. I think a lot of people saw that and they probably didn't see it kind of the same way I just laid it out, because they clicked the little like on it or whatever and they made a comment of we support you and let's do this, work together. But I don't know, when I hear somebody tell me they don't have any flies and that screwworm's not a big deal just because cattle aren't dying. Like, how many things aren't a big deal on your place that doesn't kill things? The thing of it is when cattle get infections, they are not productive.
Well,
They
that's
lose all
true.
productivity. They
They
quit
lose
growing.
productivity. That's a very good point. That's something that nobody has pointed out, is the loss in production. But the difference between New World screwworm and a regular old what do we call them when they get into infections? Maggot. Is a maggot feeds on dead flesh. The New World screwworm feeds on live flesh. And listen, I have zero experience with the New World screwworm, but I do remember the old timers, including, I mean, some of them clear up to, the Arkansas River, talking about in the old days having to, spending all day, all summer doctoring for screwworms. And they said it was devastating. And it wasn't just devastating to the herds, it was devastating to their life, their own life, because all they did was work their heinies off. Back then, they didn't have the, I shouldn't say technology, but maybe the facilities available. It was a wide open country, it was big country, and you had to get out there on your horse and rope them suckers and tie them down. And it wasn't just something you sprayed on; you had to paste it in and all of this. And I've never spoke to one of those cowboys who said, "Oh yeah, that was fun and easy." Not one person. And so I don't know where the screwworm lies today. I know that they say it's 700 miles south of it. I had a gentleman who ranches on the border tell me 3 nights ago that it's a whole lot closer than that, and that we had better get onto that. I think that we are doing. I think that we are going to do the right thing. I think last week Rollins come out, or not Rollins, but two legislators come out, one from New Mexico, one from Texas, and said, "Hey, we're going to propose a bill that will fund the building of a new world screwworm fly production facility in Texas." I support that 100%. We rolled out $21 million. Rollins did last week to partner up with Mexico in refurbishing an old fly production facility. And we still have that COPEG partnership with Panama. As far as them opening the border, I'd say keep her shut. That's what I say. I
Yeah.
don't buy in. I don't buy into this stuff that we cannot feed our own country. We can absolutely feed our own country, and we can feed others too if we will allow ourselves to do that. So that's kind of where I'm at on the New World Screwworm update. There really are no New World Screwworm updates on APHIS website or on USDA APHIS website right now. So I'm not sure where we're at on that,
Well, the
Jim.
update
But
is there seems to be a PR campaign. Like this was a video that was obviously produced by
yes,
Mexico to open that border up.
yeah,
One of the things he said is by leaving the cattle in Mexico, we're feeding the flies. It's like, well,
I
I didn't
thought they
think
didn't
you
have
had any
flies.
flies. Yeah. Uh, or he said, I think what he said is we're feeding the worm. And so if all those cattle are up north and they have the screwworm, and the Texans are the ones who kind of bring them cattle in and start feeding them, and they're the ones I think that should be the most worried about that deal because that's, as it moves north, that's the next step right across the river.
We've got to
Um,
make sure we're on top of that, Jim, before they open that border up. We have to know that we have taken care of that situation. I think it would be devastating. As high as cattle are right now, I mean, we're talking 3 weight, 9 weight, or $3 9 weight cattle, high eights. This is if we lose 10%, just 10%. And I promise you we will lose more than that if something bad were to occur in our industry, because we are at such high levels that, man, we're not talking about a little bit of money. We are talking about billions and billions of dollars in losses, and no American wants that, because once we do that, we will lose our security quickly on a national level. We got to be very careful. So I'm just like, before we all trade, let's make sure that fly is dead, or that New World Screwworm issue is gone. We do not want to be a part of that at all.
Speaking of security, I
Yeah, let's
guess,
talk
in
about security.
Mexico, I guess we'll go from the screwworm into the riots. California's on fire, I guess.
Boy, they
The
are on fire.
governor says it doesn't want to be about politics, but every one of his tweets is about Donald Trump
Yeah.
and how Donald Trump has caused these riots. It's all his fault. This is all like take a second and try to get control of your state, buddy. Like that guy is the worst.
I just don't understand how, I don't know. I guess there's just so many on the opposite side of my thought
I
process
don't
that
know that there
I
is.
don't understand how they can keep putting those people into office and watching this. And listen, I I took civics and social studies in high school. And when you have somebody standing on a burning or beside it in front of a burning car waving a Mexican flag in the United States. Is that not treasonous? I mean, I don't know how that works. I don't know how
I just
treason
can't
works.
imagine like going into a country illegally and then raising all sorts of hell and waving American
This
flag
is,
if you want
well,
to stay there.
this is exactly what entitlement does. We have given and given and given and given, and people expect us to continue it.
And they're
You're
mad
not
that if they
entitled to
don't,
us.
like they are mad that I don't know. Feel
Yeah.
like
I
this
mean,
is out of
they're
our.
mad and whatever.
Do you want to talk about that Chinese deal before we
But yeah,
wrap
that
up?
kind of goes into this food security and national security. Last week, we talked about two Chinese uh, citizens at the University of Michigan who were arrested for bringing a blight into the United States that would affect our cereal grains. Well, guess what? Just yesterday, they detained a Chinese scientist from the University of Michigan for bringing in a roundworm into the United States that she said was just for studying. This girl's name is Guoxin Han, a citizen of the People's Republic of China,
Good
who
job.
was, huh?
That's a good job on that name.
Yeah, has been charged in criminal complaint with smuggling goods into the United States. Here's what got her. She lied. Imagine that, a communist lying. I can't imagine. But it really, she's the third Chinese national in recent days to be accused of smuggling biological materials into the United States. The DOJ said two Chinese nationals allegedly smuggled the fungus in last week, and then she smuggled this roundworm in this week. Of course, they're innocent until proven guilty in the United States, but I would say University of Michigan has a real problem, and boy, this thing is very, very dangerous.
And so the
We've just
first thing they brought in was what they called head blight, which affects crops,
right.
mainly wheat,
That's
I
right.
believe, like the
It
head
was
of
called
wheat.
Fusarium graminearum.
Yeah, and so what that does is it damages the crop, and then if humans or livestock eat it, it can be toxic to them also. This
Correct.
roundworm, that thing just came out, I think today. And so there wasn't a whole lot like what the plan was for this worm, but roundworms are pretty much just worms. I mean, if you look it up, it says parasitic worms that can infect humans, leading to a condition called acerasis. But they're like intestine that gets into your intestines.
Well,
So when you
absolutely. I
talk
mean,
about somebody's got worms, that's or your dog or your horse or whatever, that's a roundworm.
well, it's a type of roundworm, but we don't know what type she brought
Yeah,
in. I
right.
mean, it could be a toxic roundworm that could be like the New World Screwworm, which eats on
Flesh.
live flesh. We don't know. But here's the key to this roundworm. It came from Wuhan, China, straight from Wuhan, China. And just 2 weeks ago, we reported on, these partnerships with the Nature Conservancy and the Chinese citizens. Not only do they have 21 offices over there, the Nature Conservancy has that many offices in China, but now they are supporting the land purchases of U.S. land in partnership with all of the. It's we're going to have to be real careful and watch all this. It's not good, not good at all,
Not good.
buddy.
Um,
Brooke Rollins update.
Brooke
You got
Rollins
that?
update.
Okay. I think last week we did not report on, Brooke Rollins led a delegation to Italy to continue trade talks with the Italians. I don't know how that went. Um, she also rolled out a $1 billion livestock drought and wildfire mitigation supplemental for producers. They will do another, that was done under the American Relief Act. They will do another $10 billion this fall for those affected by the floods in the east, due to flooding and hurricane back earlier in the year. I think that was a big deal. We need to help those people. Brooke Rollins today, I think, though it hasn't been announced, is in DC speaking to the American Agri Women, which is exciting for them. That's a all female led trade organization that promotes agriculture. And I'm pretty sure she is speaking with them today. And that's about all I have on Brooke Rollins. So next week, you and I will be in,
Next week?
isn't it next week? Yeah, it's a week from
Gee.
today. We will be in Deadwood, South Dakota at the RCAF National Convention. We will be hosting the Lonesome Report live on stage. We're going to have a lot of good stuff coming out of that. If you guys happen to make it up to Deadwood, South Dakota, come on over. We're going to have a lot of great speakers to include, Alex Newman, Governor Roden out of South Dakota. We've got who else do we have? A bunch of good
I
people.
don't know.
I
You
think there's
just
good.
freaked me out by telling me it's next week.
I know.
I
I
thought we had
know.
2 weeks.
No, sir.
Um, well, for Shad speaking Monday, and we'll be there. Me and him will do the podcast there Thursday. That's all you really need to know.
There you go.
But come see us in Deadwood, South Dakota.
Come on now.
Lonesome History segment brought to you by lonesomelands.com. Buy a shirt.
Come on.
We were talking about California. And what brought this to my mind was some idiot on the internet put a map of Mexico before the U.S. had taken over California and Texas and all that. And so he's
Mhm.
like, this is really Mexico, saying that California is actually Mexico.
Yeah.
And then someone else was said, well, it's actually Spain. If you go back to pre-1821, it was
Right.
Spain. And so I thought, well, let's talk about California since they're deciding to burn it down and the history of it all and the history of them with the cattle industry. And they have like the oldest history almost with the cattle industry. I guess the southern part of Texas was part of the mission system too.
I'm learning
Okay, so
here.
this book, California Cowboy Culture, it's a great history book about
Wow.
you ever heard of it?
I have not.
I never liked the title of it, so I didn't read it for a long time. A Saga of 5 Centuries, but it really breaks it down to the earliest of days, and then I don't know where it ends. It's been a long time since I read it, but it has a chapter on the California culture. Cattle ranching in the Californios preferred his sole occupation for the first 100 years. Indeed, from 1769 until the turn of the present century, cattle raising was the most important industry in California. What's California's most important industry now? Bunch of nerds.
Well,
Computers.
agriculture, huh?
Silicon Valley,
Is
right?
it
I
technology?
would assume that's how they make all their money.
I don't know. Agriculture in California is
Oh
huge
yeah,
and
it's
it's
still a big deal.
dynamic and beautiful and awesome.
Yeah, right on. California, like Texas, was far from the seat of authority in Mexico City. Although it was claimed by the Spanish, they made no serious effort to occupy California until, as had been the case with Texas, it appeared another nation was attracted to the area. Russians, sailing down from the coast of Alaska, were looking with interest at California. Then, too, the British in Western Canada were eyeing the region. The concerned Spanish crown ordered Captain Gaspar de Portola, governor of Baja, which is Lower California, to establish presidios and missions to the north along the coast of Upper California. Cattle, horses, and mules were in short supply in Lower California, but missions donated what stock they could spare. About 200 cattle, most of them cows with their calves, 45 horses, 140 mules for saddle and pack stock, and 2 jennies were gathered from missions along the trail as an expedition pushed northward from Laredo, a settlement about 200 miles north of the southern tip of Lower California. Meanwhile, 2 ships set sail north in early 1769, one reportedly bringing the first cattle to California, perhaps 6 or 7 head. The other cattle and livestock, including the first horses to reach California, were driven overland through 600 miles of deserts and rugged mountainous terrain. The overland expedition reached San Diego in May 1769 and linked up with those who had come by sea. So you don't think about that
Wow.
very often, huh? What would that
No.
been like 7 years before U.S. declared independence?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It says the Spanish were impressed with the richness of California land. The fine grasslands along the coast were ideally suited for cattle grazing. Expedition of Captain Gaspar de Portola, traveling around 1770 between San Diego and what is today San Francisco, left many records attesting to this. One account, written by Fray Juan Crespi on January 4th, 1770, noted the country is delightful, for it's covered with beautiful grasses, which afford excellent pasture for animals. How about that?
Yeah.
1770. So now we're 16 years before we declared independence. He was traveling there around San Diego to San Francisco. The cattle
Wow.
population in California was small, but it nearly doubled 3 years later, which was after, okay, that's after 1773. So between 1773 and 1776, I guess, cattle population doubled. Um, when Juan Bautista de Anza's expedition of 240 people, many of them colonists recruited from Sonora and Sinaloa, brought about 350 head of cattle, nearly 700 horses to California. The expedition came overland from the Presidio at Tubac, south of modern Tucson, Arizona. I marked a couple other things here. It is not surprising that the Spanish in California adhered to the law that no Indian. Oh, this is the interesting part about California. They they got up there and they needed people to watch over these cattle because they were multiplying so fast. It is not surprising that the Spanish in California adhered to the law that no Indian could be allowed to own or ride a horse. By the late 18th century, they knew from experience that unfriendly mounted Indians could cause serious trouble. So they didn't have horses in California. The
Wow.
first mounted Indians, late 18th century, which would be in 1700s. Um, so the I suppose the Comanche and Kiowa in Texas had got
They
a hold of
hadn't made it
horses,
over there.
but the horses hadn't been to California. Initially, a few vaqueros who arrived in California with cattle could handle the animals with ease. These cattle were quite tame, having been in nearly constant contact with humans since they were
Yeah.
first headed north. The
Yeah.
vaqueros found it easy to corral the cattle at night and to herd them near missions during the day. But as the cattle population increased and missions had to loose their cattle on open ranges to provide sufficient grass, there were not enough vaqueros to handle them. Many of the animals born on the open ranges became wild. By the 18th century, the padres had no choice but to train some of their Indian converts to be vaqueros. In turn, the Spanish authorities, realizing the need, ignored the law forbidding Indians to ride horses. Um, so they had to be Christianized to get on a horse. Um, and then they came up with I'll have to cut a little bit here, buddy. I thought I had a thing where I had marked how the Indians got out of hand. Okay. The Indian vaqueros in California, as elsewhere in New Spain, also were taught how to build a branding fire, how to keep the branding irons hot, and to apply a brand, and how to earmark a calf. By the 18th century, brands and earmarks were used on horses as well, although the earlier Mesta regulations had outlawed earmarks for a time. Wonder why that was. Why would you outlaw an earmark? A brand might be a single letter, insignia, figure, or combination of any of the three. They were applied in one of five positions, either naturally, upside down at a 45-degree angle, known as tumbling, horizontally, and termed lazy, or finally reversed. Brands are always read from top to bottom and from left to right. When the letters are joined, they are called connected. So there you go.
It's pretty interesting.
They taught the Indians how to brand cattle. So,
So,
California. To go back to California and even into Texas, and if you look at the Spanish missions, how countries lost their land. Spain, that was Spain that we were talking about there.
yeah.
Well, Mexico decided, they brought in, I mean, Mexico had their own people that were Spaniards, but they decided that they were going to revolt and wanted their independence. But if you look at how Texas became Texas, They brought in Mexico. So then it became Mexico in 1821. And then they started bringing, actually, I think Austin's family, his dad had a deal with Spain before that revolution. But then after the revolution, it was Stephen Austin who created the white settlements in Texas. And so because Mexico wanted Texas settled, they allowed Americans to come and settle Mexico. So they brought in these immigrants, and the immigrants decided we want to be Americans, and that's how they lost. If you looked at California, history repeats itself. We
Yeah.
brought in all these immigrants who
Yeah.
want to wave Mexican flags, and if you're wondering why we don't want an immigrant population that is not loyal to the U.S., because
That's
Mexico
why.
brought in an immigrant population that
That's
was
right.
not loyal to Mexico. They were loyal to the U.S. And now Texas is America. And all right, buddy. Thanks a lot for getting mad. I think it'll be make a great episode.
Well, I apologize up front to anybody I pissed off, but it is what it is, and uh,
One
we
thing
roll
about
on.
Shad, he's passionate for what he believes in, and that's why we're here. Tell
I
people
just,
what we believe in.
I just want your kids and mine to enjoy the sweet taste of freedom. That's all. It's really that simple. I mean, you have millions of Americans who came before us and shed blood on soil far, far away from their homeland, so that me and you could enjoy the sweet taste of freedom. And so we have to do the same for those who come behind us. And nobody, not even those people who have partnered up with those nefarious organizations, ENGOs, NGOs, nobody wants their kids to suffer. And I'm at the top of that list. I don't want your kids to suffer. I don't want my kids to suffer. And I want that flag, that American flag, to wave high, high, high on the hill so that we can continue to be a beacon to the world. That's how I feel. Sorry.
Right on. Great way to wrap it up. See you next week.
Adios.